You got big plans for Thursday, Geoff?
This Thursday? Today?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday?
Yeah.
Forget where I live.
No, I know. That's why I'm laughing.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
So
No,
like, there's just football on during the day, and you're like, what is this?
Yeah, it's kind of like an extra holiday for me in a lot of ways because all the companies I work for are American. So I either end up picking up everyone's slack because everyone's like, I don't want to do any work on Thanksgiving, or I just end up doing nothing because no one does anything. So kind of a weird.
All right, let's go. Thursday night football, Packers, Titans. Al Michaels will be happy tonight, right? This is a good matchup. We got some star power on both sides of this game. Pete McCarthy, Geoff Ulrich, we'll be breaking this down for No House Advantage and specifically their pickup contest. We'll delve into if you want to play against the house as well. But what's happening, Geoff? Jeff's up in Canada. Is asking about Thanksgiving. What goes on? You know, it's this is nice little reprieve for you, huh? Right before.
Yeah, when I was younger, I used to always try and take the day off school or whatever, so I could just sit home and watch football all day.
Yeah.
Now it's like my job, right? So I don't really have to take the day off to watch football, but at the same time, like I was telling you, it is kind of like a mini day off for me because everybody I work for is in the States anyways. So yeah.
Well, I'm sure you'll be busy next week. We'll find some work for you next week. Keep you humming along with three big games to be talking about. But Thursday night football here. Give us a like, subscribe, of course. And once you do subscribe, hit that notification button. That'll give you alerts when all of our shows go live. Obviously, there's a lot happening here at Stokastic YouTube channel, so be sure to lock into everything that we have going on. Tonight, No House Advantage, $15 entry, $10K to first place. The usual, $1,600 entry total. Kind of interested in how many people jump in tonight, being that there's no NBA game until 10 o'clock Eastern time. So it's kind of football has this lone window, which will be a little bit interesting. As for the game, the Packers taking on the Titans. Maybe the Packers figured something out last week. They're not dead yet, as Aaron Rodgers will tell you. They are 3.5-point favorites going up against Derrick Henry's group and this Tennessee Titans team. Football weather, how about mid-20s at Lambeau Field tonight, Geoff? It's going to look good.
Yeah, man. It's Green Bay season, like this is sometimes when the opponents start coming to Green Bay and it just everything gets a little tighter and Aaron Rodgers likes it. I mean, I think that's part of his appeal of why he stayed here. But yeah, this one. I mean, again, like you said, I mean, I don't know if we'll get offensive fireworks. This should be a good game. I mean, with two teams who, legitimately still in it. I know Green Bay's been kind of ass all year, but like they looked better last year. Excited to see Christian Watson going again, and if we can see any continuation. So yeah, and some interesting props to choose from on Noah's Advantage too. With the Christian Watson bump, still got Sammy Watkins in the mix. So actually lots of guys to choose from on this slate, which is kind of a rarity because we had a lot of like injury issues and smaller prop boards for Thursday in the past.
Yeah, nobody as of now is out that is on the board. So that gives us more players to play with, more props to look at here, because when two guys are out, you almost got to select everybody who's available for some of these, but we have a few more options as far as this game goes. Big picture of this game, I mean, I like Tennessee tonight. I'll tell you that right off the bat. One stat that jumped out at me is that the Tennessee Titans have the top-ranked rush defense in the NFL. This is from Football Outsiders. The Packers, if you've watched them this year, and if you watch them on Sunday against the Cowboys, they're looking to run the football so far this year. Aaron Rodgers is yet to throw for 300 yards in a game. So I think that'll be an interesting part of this matchup. And then on the other end, Green Bay is 30th at defending the run. And again, that's the Football Outsiders rush DVOA. And I don't think I have to tell you that the Tennessee Titans like to run the football.
I've heard that from people. The Titans are a rush heavy team here. And yeah, I mean, why don't we start with Derrick Henry? You bring up the stats and everything you say is true. I do think this is a spot where you can kind of go against some of these props. So I'm not going to lie. Like Derrick Henry, we have projected as an over. It's not like a strong overplay though. It's probably like one of the weaker sort of leans on the board. I think it's kind of like trending as like a bottom 10% play for us, but it leans over. I really think that the field is going to look at this because like Henry, from what I've seen, his sportsbook props are like, they're over 100. And, we've got a 93 prop for the contest. I think that the tendency for people are going to say, okay, Green Bay's rush defense, like you said, not grading out well. they're just going to smash this to the over. But like, I think there's still a lot of scenarios where the Packers really just stack the line. It's cold weather. Derrick Henry, if you can shut him down early and if you can put points up on Tennessee early, forces Ryan Tannehill to drop back more, who I think could potentially just get crushed in this game. So I know Green Bay's defense, again, like their offense going into last week, it hasn't looked good, but like this is still projected to be a good defensive start of the year. I think they come up. I really think Green Bay comes up and shows something again this week. So I'm actually looking to take a contrarian stance on Henry. That's kind of going to be my call here. I'll drop it right off the bat that even though the projections have this leaning slightly over, I actually like this for the contest as a contrarian one. It's a big prop total, and if Tennessee gets down early, I mean, I know they run all the time, but you'll still see Henry get limited a bit. So that's just my feeling going into this one. I don't know if you call it a gut call or whatever, but I think you're going to see the Green Bay defense stiffen up a bit here.
Well, I think you make a good call, an interesting play on Derrick Henry that, hey, if, let's say 70% of the field is going to go over on Derrick Henry. And I can tell you that I took the over on Henry when I did one lineup to start things out. Then, you get a little different by going under. Henry was under this past week against Denver. It's a really good defense. 19 carries, 53 yards this past Sunday. Got the short week. I guess what I would find interesting is, can we look at that Titans game from last week against Denver? And if you're gonna go Henry under on rushing yardage, what does that allow you to get to elsewhere? Does that mean that Tennessee's passing the ball where we can go over on some of these really low receiver props for the receivers? Does it mean, maybe AJ Dillon or something gets over and the Packers are just running the ball and playing keep away? Where else you to go if you do take a bit of a contrarian stand, which is certainly not ridiculous, that Derrick Henry would be under a big number at 93.5?
Yeah. And again, like it's still a big number, right? But I mean, yeah, you definitely probably look to pair it with some passing props, starting off with the Tennessee offense. It's a little bit of a weird situation, like we have, Treylon Burks is back in the mix. He's not listed in the, obviously in the props on No House Advantage, but he's in the mix. Obviously Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, coming off the monster game last week, he saw 8 targets, which was his season high, maybe even been a career high. 5 catches, obviously the 120 yards against a good pass defense. And now he's got like a 1.5 receiving prop. I think that, again, it's like he could go back to nothing here. He really could go back to getting like 3 targets. No one would be shocked. But we're at 1.5. We're not asking him to get like 3 or 4 catches here. I think it's fine to take the over on that, and I think most people will. But again, like if you're asking me, like you've got the same ownership percentage on Westbrook-Ikhine to get 2 catches, and then the same ownership percentage on Henry to go over 93.5 yards, I'd rather fade the Henry prop. It's much harder to get to. There's way more factors that can go wrong there. So pairing those two, the under on Henry with the Westbrook-Ikhine over, that makes a lot of sense. I'd probably just go over on we actually have the receiving yards on Westbrook-Ikhine as the actually better prop. So that's maybe something to consider as well. Maybe even you double down there, right? And I think that's fine too. But like Robert Woods, where did Brooks come from? Mm-hmm. Robert Woods is projected as a really good overplay as well. Actually stronger play than Westbrook-Ikhine at over 2.5 receptions. So, I think most people look at that line last week and say, Westbrook-Ikhine, okay. But maybe just taking the Woods over, and putting that higher up, that'll give you more leverage in your higher point spots. So I think trusting the projections there, I'm fine with. Woods is still, the receiver that's on the field the most. I think that was more of just a spike game for Westbrook-Ikhine. Yeah. And I think he'll still probably get over his props this week. But I actually think that the Woods prop makes more sense to go over on.
But if the Packers do force the Titans to pass the football, look, Westbrook-Ikhine, 8 targets last week. Robert Woods had 7 targets last week. He had 8 in the previous 3 games combined when Derrick Henry's run for 100 yards week after week after week. So if you do go under on on the running back, Derrick Henry, and it allows you to get to some of these really low numbers. I mean, even Austin Hooper, you get to 2 catches. We have that as a 65% chance of the over. And these are free projections that we're referencing over at Stokastic.com. You go to NFL projections and then No House Advantage projections, and that's all there for you free, running our simulations. But as for Austin Hooper, I mean, 65% chance of getting that second catch. He's done it in 3 of the last 4 games, has been active of late. You know, another guy who was busy in the passing game last week with 7 targets.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you could probably go over on multiple of those guys. I think that if anything, I actually would almost think about leaving Westbrook-Ikhine out and then maybe going over on Hooper and Woods, because I think that recency bias will lead the Nick Westbrook-Ikhine props to be the most popular over target. You don't necessarily have to fade it, but maybe just leaving it out and going over on Hooper and Woods with the under on Henry. I think that's kind of the way, you know, when we're constructing here based around a Derrick Henry under, that's kind of how I would think about going about it.
Yeah. So this Titans offense, it'll be interesting. Now, you know, maybe this is more of a chalky way to go about it, but if we like Derrick Henry to go over on the rushing yards, are these receiving numbers, these lines even still too low to be, you know, trying to get under and say, I mean, I guess we could look at Ryan Tannehill, right? We were talking about the Titans offense. Let's do Tannehill. The one that jumped out to me is 1.5 passing touchdowns. We have that 68% under. I think that's an easy one. Derrick Henry runs for 150 yards. We can go under on Ryan Tannehill. We can go under on Tannehill probably anyway with these passing touchdowns, considering if they get close to the end zone, it's going to be King Henry time.
Look, the nice thing about the Titans and just, you know, like, again, it's really nice to build around Derrick Henry because, again, we just talked about the idea of building around him with the under, but at the same time, if he goes over, they ain't going to be passing the ball much at all. Like, you'll probably see Tannehill with like 19 passes or potentially less. So under on the passing touchdowns. I mean, I like that regardless of what you're playing for, to be honest. Like, I don't even need a game scenario for Ryan Tannehill for me to take the under here. I'm just going to trust the projections. It's our second highest projected prop in terms of, you know, just reliance at 68%, under 1.5 passing touchdowns. But, you know, if you're playing Henry for the over, I think everybody is in play to go to the under in the receiving section. You know, you want to get super contrarian and go under 1.5 receptions for Westbrook-Ikhine. I think it's fine. He may only, like I said, he may get 2 targets in a game where Henry gets 25 plus 30 carries because it's cold. Tannehill's like coming off the injury. He's not a strong arm quarterback. They don't want him throwing down the field this game. Trust me. So, you know, you could pick and choose, I think, at that point. And really, go for the max leverage. So that's the nice thing about the Titans side. You can really just like play it off Henry. If you're going to go under, absolutely take a couple overs because these props are so low, but don't be afraid to go the other way with the passing props and go under on the passing props because they just won't throw the ball much at all in this game if Henry gets like 30 carries. So.
Yeah, and for the uninitiated, we're talking about this from a No House Advantage, specifically their pick'em contests, and you have to take 7 different props, and you put them at a confidence level, right? 7 points for the one you're most confident in, down to 1 point. You want to get all 7 of them right, so you'd like them to correlate, right? And you can think of a game script and put it together, but there is a little bit of game theory to this because you're not just trying to get 7 of 7 right. You're also trying to beat everybody else and get the largest share of that $10,000 you can get, right? You can take chalky picks, get to first place, and then there's $800 for you there because you're splitting with a bunch of people. Whereas you get a little different, maybe you can get that full $10,000. We've certainly seen it happen over the course of this year.
And I mean, you don't have to go contrarian in every single play. You know, you can take like one hard stance and sometimes that's enough, right? So if you really like the game flow of this game, you say, I like the Henry over, I still think these props are too low. Maybe you just go under on like one of these guys and you get a really contrarian receiving under. But a great explanation by Pete. It's, you know, we're playing to the game here on No House Advantage, which I think is extremely interesting from a strategy standpoint. So
it's fun. I mean, I almost think of it now as like a decision tree, right? Where, you know, you make one choice and then that's going to determine a lot of the other things that are going to follow. And maybe Derrick Henry is that key first decision that everybody's going to have to make here. Is this Derrick Henry just romping the ball all night, low scoring game, and nobody else for the Titans offense is touching the ball? I mean, I look a lot at the optimal lineups for DraftKings showdowns. So like the previous 5 games, not this past week against Denver, because Derrick Henry wasn't even in the optimal lineup this past week, but previously he had been in like 1-5s. Like he was the only Titans offensive player that was making the optimal lineups because he was just eating up everything, every opportunity for this Titans offense. When he is going, nobody else gets involved typically.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And a great way to translate that information to Noah's advantage is, again, you don't need to leave everyone out on the Titans, because, you know, we have the opportunity to still use that information, take the unders. So yeah, it's a perfect way to do it. Like I said, that's kind of why I like building around Derrick Henry here tonight.
All right, let's look at the Packers offense. Now, I think they want to run the ball as well. Look, you got Aaron Jones, 56.5 rushing yards, pretty low. We don't have a receiving yardage prop for Aaron Jones. We know he could be a threat in that way as well. The projections like the over on Aaron Jones. A couple of games ago against Detroit, he got hurt, missed some time. A.J. Dillon took advantage in that spot, but Dillon hasn't really been a big factor. He's not a guy who's going to rip off a 40-yard run, right? As he had the backup there, 44.5 rushing yards. What do you like to do when you see two running backs on the same team in this spot? They're both numbers that are gettable, but it gets more difficult when you have two of them, obviously, in the mix.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do with the Packers. I mean, with the Packers, again, it almost feels like you maybe just take like a little bit more of an optimal approach where, again, like we got Aaron Jones projected as a solid over. I think that's fine. I think you could even look to A.J. Dillon going up against a tougher rush defense. That's fine. But I do go back to last week. And like you bring up a good point. I mean, the Titans have looked good stopping the run, but, you know, like the Dallas Cowboys are a top 10 rush defense in DVOA as well. And the Packers ran the ball all over the yard in them. So I do think, like, again, you take that Titans starting point. If you're playing the Henry under, I don't have a problem going over on both running backs here. I think the Packers maybe figured something out. I don't know if it's just O-line related, scheme related. Maybe Aaron Rodgers just like yelling finally clicked in for everyone, but like something definitely clicked last week with that offense. And it wasn't against Detroit or, you know, like the Texans. We're talking about Dallas. So again, another cold weather game here at home. I'm interested to see if I think there's going to be follow up from Green Bay. Like I said, I liked them in this game, and you don't have to take both running backs, but I would definitely be playing at least one over here. I think this line is obviously, and we agree, like, you know, the line on Aaron Jones is too small. I mean, we obviously have him projected as an overplay, but you know, A.J. Dillon, it's not like you said, he's definitely far more risky to take an over on, but I think that, again, that leads to the field, the leverage argument. People will probably be looking to go over on Jones and then under on Dillon, because Dillon just doesn't, he gets like 8-yard carries. That's nice, but there's never that 25-yard rush where you can get there on like 5 carries for you. So you're really relying on game flow here. And if the game flow isn't there, Dillon's going to go under. But if it is there and it plays out like last week, not only will you get the Dillon over, but you'll probably get the Henry under as well. So I think that all this just correlates really nicely, where you can take a hardline approach starting from a Henry under, play it all the way to the other side here, and really go heavy on like Dillon over or Jones over, and maybe even both. So.
And I'll tell you what, you mentioned how well they ran against Dallas last week. That was a game where they were trailing the whole way. And yet Aaron Jones still ran for 138 yards. A.J. Dillon got 13 carries last week. Yep. Again, in a game that they were behind the whole time. Green Bay wants to run the ball. And with the inexperience at the receiving position, everybody's all over the big performance of Christian Watson last week. But that's one of the big takeaways, I think, is what Green Bay was able to do. Now, this is a tough matchup, as we talked about. I guess it's Tennessee run defense. How about the receivers here? Because as I mentioned, Christian Watson essentially took Sammy Watkins' snaps. They basically switched. Watson all of a sudden seeing 84% of the snaps last week, 3 touchdown catches, 107 yards, monster week. Sammy Watkins now 33% of the snaps last week. It's really low numbers for Sammy Watkins, 23.5 receiving, 1.5 receptions. Christian Watson, I mean, he hadn't been a factor all year, and now we're looking at 42.5 receiving yards. So what do you do with these two?
Yeah, this is definitely the toughest spot on the board, the Green Bay receiving options here, because we don't have as low props to cherry pick from for Tennessee. You've got Watkins, who is just like, even when he's getting snaps, he's just in every week. Yeah, he could go for like 100 yards and 3 touchdowns himself, or he'll probably just do what he usually does and go for like 20 yards on 6 targets. So like he's an every week headache, and we haven't projected as an under for that, even though on these low targets, these low shares, but it's such a low number. And you're going up against a secondary in Tennessee that really just doesn't, like, they don't protect well against the wide receiver position either. And you've got Aaron Rodgers. So I like both of these receivers could easily get 2 catches and go over their yardage number. I mean, like that's on the table. So again, like I said, to me, Green Bay is more of just like an optimal spot where, we got Watkins projected for under. I'm fine just taking that and just relying on that. Then I don't have to worry about Sammy Watkins. Tunyon is interesting at 31.5 as well. I don't know if we have a receptions prop for him. I don't think
so. 2.5.
But I feel like, we do. Okay. So like, I like Tunyon. I mean, he hasn't been as involved as I thought he would be, like even last week, but I think part of that was just Watson just being so wide open. I think if there's any letdown here for Watson, it's probably because Tunyon is like getting some secondary coverage and Tennessee shifts over to make up for Watson and they try and just shut him down. So I would much rather be bullish on a guy like Tunyon than Watkins here.
Agree.
But this is a tough spot. I mean, we haven't talked about Allen Lazard. Like we've legitimately got 4 targets here, and maybe none of them are like elite targets, but all these guys could get receptions, but there's probably not going to be enough passes for all of them to go over either. So a lot of guessing games going on here. And I don't have like a hard take on any one of these guys. I would probably say that, might want to fade Watson the spot as much as I like the way he looked. And I think it's going to be great long-term, but it might be a spot to go back. And then just, again, the field, all the sentiment coming in on Watson. I think Tunyon is still a big part of this offense, and he's got the lower props. So,
and I like Tunyon too in terms of this. So if you look at our projections and our chances that we gave a guy going over or under, you got Tunyon 60% under on the receiving yards, but then 57% over on the receptions. So he's a guy that you don't see that a lot. And you can kind of correlate it, right? If you have a certain kind of lineup where like Derrick Henry, you have him over, well, then you could take the over on Tunyon maybe because Green Bay's having a pass to come back, or the other way around. So, it kind of allows you to go both ways on Tunyon is like that 1-pointer at the bottom of your lineup potentially. Really quick on Lazard. He's only reached 5 catches twice all year. He's maxed out at 6. That 4.5 receptions line seems a little steep to me.
Yep.
And then Aaron Rodgers, what we like, 242.5 passing yards. I feel like in years past, you wouldn't blink at it with Aaron Rodgers, but again, it's not what the Green Bay Packers are looking to do. Rodgers hasn't thrown for 300 yards all year. We saw he did throw touchdowns last week against Dallas, but if you watch the game, it was all about the running game for Green Bay.
So I'm fully with you on Lazard. I actually think that's a really strong under. We haven't projected as an under, and I'm actually surprised it's not higher just because of, again, we're talking about all these targets here. Like, I mean, for Green Bay, I mean, for Lazard to get like 6 catches or something, I know he only needs 5, but like to have like a season high in catches now in a cold weather game, like with more targets, that seems tough. And then as far as this Rodgers passing prop, man, like everybody has been the only thing that worries me about this is everybody is everyone I've talked about this game has pointed out this prop and how big it is. And I agree. And it's moved a little bit like around the industry, but this is pretty much what 242.5 is everywhere is kind of where he opens. So I don't know. I mean, I understand like I don't think they're going to throw that much either, but you do have an extra target here in Christian Watson now. I don't know. It's a weird number.
Watch, he'll run those stupid shovel passes to Aaron Jones, and he'll go for 70 yards right off the bat. Yeah.
It just feels like a trappy number, right? Like it's just like I don't have anything to say. I agree. Like, I mean, I was not expecting a 242 prop for this game, but Tennessee's secondary does give up quite a bit of plays. They're funnel to the pass kind of defense. So there's an argument where, you take over on Rodgers, I guess. You pair it with like, I think the one thing, again, if you're going to do that, you've got to be looking to Watson over. I mean, like Lazard and Watson probably going to be the big, real yardage gainers there. I think it would be a weird scenario for Rodgers to go over this and not like at least Christian Watson going over. I mean, that Lazard, I guess, could get there with 100 yards or something, but that would be kind of, like I said, strange. So, at least it's an easier correlation. I think you could maybe look to take like the Tunyon over receptions with Watson over yards and Rodgers over passing yards. I think those 3 correlate pretty well, but it's still like, I'm not making a huge argument here. I'm just, if throwing out devil's advocate's argument if you're going to go over it. But I'm with you. I mean, this line seems too big, and probably just take what's given to us here.
Well, how about this? So we know, player no house advantage in the pickup contest. The numbers tend to be kind of high. But then if you play versus the house, I mean, these are going to be the straight up props because, there's no juice on the lines. There's no game theory part of it. I mean, you're trying to keep it fair if you're no house advantage with these lines, certainly. Aaron Rodgers at no house advantage playing versus the house, 245 and a half passing. It's actually a higher number than you have in the pick'em contest.
That's what I'm saying. And it's not out of line with what we're seeing at other places. Like, this is the line for Aaron Rodgers in this game. So it's really just got me thinking all week here, like, are we going to see like a kind of a passing game explosion here? He's, like I said, now he's got all these healthy targets. He's got a downfield passer. Does this run game suddenly just open up, a bunch of different lanes for a bunch of different people? Watson going downfield. Lazard's now going to be open under the middle. Tunyon as well. I think that there's an argument there. So again, I'm not piling into Aaron Rodgers overs here or something like that. Don't get that impression, but it just adds an intrigue to this game and a different way to play it, I think, because without the Christian Watson explosion last week, there's no argument for over this number before. So, but it's only been 1 week too. So like our sample size is ridiculously
and
small.
Rodgers didn't even hit this number last week.
No, I know, right?
It's the best their passing game has looked in a long time, and yet he's still through for what, 207 or something.
There's no way around it.
So look, I mean, you could play it versus the house, and find some areas to pair it with. I mean, let's look at the receivers. You got Tunyon 28.5 receiving yards, Watson 42.5 receiving yards. So hey, if you want to go under on Rodgers, under on Watson, maybe go over on Derrick Henry, which is a higher number at, I think it was 105.5. And then, look, you try to get 3 out of 3, you get 5 times your money playing versus the house. You can hedge a little bit off the pick'em contest if you want, because that's straight up. You're just trying to be right. So a couple of different ways to approach it. If you get 5 out of 5, you can play 5 different props, of course. No house advantage versus the house as well. You get 20 times your money on that. So you're not going to see that anywhere else. And you can find some things that correlate, go together, play for a certain game script, and then, maybe you play your chalky way in that arena, and then the pick'em, you get a little loopy and take Derrick Henry under and all the overs on the Packers passing game and play for a much different game than maybe the most people are walking in expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the beauty of No House. They give you the versus the house contest to, like you said, you can create hedges, you can go different routes, you got different numbers as well. It's a great site. Definitely recommend checking it out. As we always drop in, the bonus stuff as well that you can get with using promo code Stokastic. I believe it still is. Get it done. And if you're new to it, check it out. You got a link below, but you put in $50, they give you $50 to play with. So that's always a good thing when you get some free money to be messing around with over there. They also have NBA. It's going to be a late slate tonight, so you get to easily play NFL and NBA tonight. We got Terry and Gundacker coming up, going to steer you through the 3 games on tonight's NBA slate. And then we'll get back to the NFL a little later with a showdown live before lock at 7 Eastern, getting ready for Packers Titans. Should be fun tonight. Appreciate you, Jeff. Have a good one, bud. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys.